Hey guys, welcome to the NFE Workshop. I'm Tom Griffin, joined by Dave Bingham. We're trying something different with our training today. So this is going to be kind of a casual session for the next hour. And I think what we were envisioning for this is that, we're sitting at a trade show talking to you guys in the booth, or maybe you're with your coworkers or anybody at the bar after the day is over, and just kind of chatting over surface prep stuff and some best practices and tips, and just kind of seeing where things go. So we're here to have some fun and try something different. So I hope you're excited about that as much as we are.
Thanks you guys for logging in. It looks like we've got about 4,000 people already logged on. That's awesome. That's
You have eagle eyesight.
I can see the count from here.
Holy man.
Just kidding, I can't count. That was a prerequisite of my job here.
That's why we sit on this side of the table.
Right. And just, you guys can't see it, but the marketing team put tape marks on the table for us because I guess they thought we were going to sit on opposite ends of the table. They actually gave us marks and put our names on it. Wish y'all could see it. It's great. It's fantastic.
I know right where I'm supposed to be, and it's right here, right now.
So fantastic.
So I think for this one, is the live chat open? Yeah. So live chat's open, guys. If you've got any questions, feel free to type them in. Marketing team, Nick Stefanski and Connie are watching it for us. And then I think we've got some other questions that were submitted before this to get us going. So
I'm pretty sure if you stump us with a legitimate surface prep question, there's a free prize of nothing. But I do encourage you guys to try to stump us.
Well, I was going to say, these are expensive mics, but I think the next time if we get stumped, we should get shot with a water gun or something.
I like that. Maybe slimed
idea.
or...
Slimed. Let's go Nickelodeon style and just have a bucket of
I've seen
epoxy
Tom,
dumped on our heads. Probably not.
I've personally seen Tom in a Speedo fishing. So maybe we could pop up a shot of that as a surprise. No?
Nope.
Mario
no one
says
needs
no.
to see that,
Dang.
including myself.
I don't know. I thought it was fascinating.
And it's called a budgie smuggler. That's what they call it down under.
I didn't realize that.
Yep.
So let's see if you guys can bring in some questions right away. And we don't want to be too serious because it's no fun to be real serious. But if you guys have some questions regarding surface preparation, whether it's scarification, shot blasting, grinding, heaven forbid somebody asks us questions about scraping, the different models, maybe some blade questions, some application questions. If you guys are out there and you're listening in and you're tuning in and you struggle with something and you want to know if you're doing it the right way, if there's a better way, there's a really good chance that either Tom or myself, and I'm Dave Bingham, unless I owe you money, then that's not actually my legal name, so can't help you. So ask us some questions. We like answering questions. It's probably what we do a majority of our time here we've made a career at National.
Yep.
We've both been here a long time, and we really want to help you guys with these questions, so bring them on.
First
Question.
What do I do if I lose power in the middle of a job?
All right.
Machine shuts down. Where do you start powering?
So I'll repeat. Oh, yeah, you got it? You got it? So the question was, what do I do if I lose power in the middle of the job?
You tell your boss that you're going home and you take the rest of the day off. Is that the right answer? That is not the right answer.
I believe it's called lunchtime.
Yeah, take a long break until somebody else fixes your problem.
Figures it out, something. You've probably actually had that happen to you.
So I would assume that when you say lose power, does that mean you've tripped a breaker, you've overamped something, maybe you've got two pieces of equipment plugged into one breaker that's pulling too much and then you've tripped it. So obviously the first thing I would check is the breakers to make sure that we didn't trip a breaker. Is that kind of the road that we're going down?
Well, and I think because nobody out there ever does this, nobody ever pulls their dust collector along by the power cord. So I would say definitely check the breaker first and check your electrical connections just to make sure something didn't come loose. But a lot of times we find too, if guys are having power issues and everything looks like it should be, opening up those plugs and receptors and making sure that everything is actually still attached. Because if you've got a loose connection On, a single phase machine, it's not going to work. If it's a 3-phase machine, you might get it to turn on, but then it's not going to do anything. So it's not really losing power, but it's definitely losing functionality.
Even on 110 volt, I used to think that if you're tripping a 20 amp breaker, it is because you're new and you don't understand you shouldn't plug your vacuum in your shop blaster or your Scarifier or your 110 volt national grinder into the same 20 amp breaker, even though they're in different plugs. But I've actually plugged a shop blaster in the garage and then run cord all the way around in the back to the patio because the house was locked and ended up tripping a breaker, even though it's really far away. It's not a novice or amateur mistake. Sometimes you just can't get far enough away. So it's always great to have backup generation as a contractor.
Yep.
So you can split it up so you can guarantee that you're going to run your grinder, your shop blaster in like a garage setting off of the 20 amp breaker, and then maybe run your vac off your smaller generator because it's pulling a lot less amps.
Well, I was going to say, that's actually something that I've heard a few times. A lot of guys prefer just to run off backup generation just from the start. So they've got full control of their setup and their environment. They're never having to worry about shore power, worrying about having an electrician on site to be able to do things, especially if it's a union job. You're not going to be touching that electrical panel yourself.
Sure.
So I definitely have heard a lot about that. And, having the generator there, you always know you're always going to have the amount of power that you need.
Yeah, we do a lot of talking at National Flooring Equipment about having enough tools for the job, similar to a mechanic that works on your car. If you took your car to a mechanic and he has this big, huge toolbox, would be like your truck or your trailer, and that mechanic opened up a bunch of his toolbox drawers and he had one wrench. He's like, man, I can't wait to work on your car. Pretty sure you'd back out slowly and take your car somewhere else. As a contractor, you also need enough tools to complete the job. Last thing, if you lose power on a job, if you can't identify the problem is in a breaker, or you've identified it's not a breaker, a lot of the national machines actually have breakers inside of the power panels. Mm-hmm. If you're not a qualified electrician, you can get one, hire one. You can reach out to National Flooring Equipment's service, Tom Nyland. I don't know the 800 number off the top of my head, but I know the number 763-315-5300. Maybe we can put up the 800 number for you guys. I don't know that 800 is as important as it used to be. I remember when I was younger, if I wanted to call my cousin in the next town over, it was actually long distance, so I wasn't allowed to call my cousin who lived like 8 minutes away from us. So I think with cell phones, that's not as big of a deal, but we'll try to get the 800 number up there. Sorry, I don't know.
I was going to say, the only one I know is
Thanks,
Empire
Nick.
Direct. 800-588-2300.
Empire.
Empire
Yeah.
today.
That is
So we need
fantastic.
a jingle. We need a jingle for our 800 number.
I know an old competitor's number, but I'm not going to sing that one. Spit it out. Sorry.
And hey guys, while you're out there too, if you've got a better answer than what we're slinging up here, type it into the chat. Let people know too. We really want this to be interactive and exciting for everybody.
All right. Do we have any more questions coming through on the chat? Or yes.
I have more questions. 230 volt power isn't the same across the country, right? You might not always be wiring into what you expect. How do you identify that and problem solve?
So the question is, power seems to change in different locations, not necessarily just in a different part of the country, but different buildings, different power sources on 230. And this could be true for 110 volt, 230 single phase, 233 phase, and even 483 phase. There's a lot of variation. And I typically encourage contractors, especially once you get into the 230 to 480 range, make some pigtails.
You want me to snag one?
I was going to say, I've got one over on the wall I can grab if you...
Yeah, here. I'll grab one.
Thanks, Tom.
Yep. Just making sure I'm not going to rip something off if I walk away.
Tom is definitely my right-hand man. He's always here to help out. He's a fantastic resource at National Flooring Equipment. So if you guys get a chance, you can always reach out to him or me or anybody at the national office. So what we try to do and we try to teach is if you can make up some pigtails for your equipment, for your extension cords, if you can drop these off in advance and have an electrician wire you up to 230 volt single phase, 230 volt three phase, 480 depending on which equipment you have, and tell them what size breaker you need, it'll solve a lot of your problems. And really, if you communicate that early on, that's going to really help you manage your customers' expectations. It'll also make your job a lot easier because all you have to do is show up and plug in and you're ready to go. I warn you guys, if you come in and just start shutting breakers off in the building, you can shut off sprinkler controls, computer systems, security systems, elevators. That's not a really good idea. You really want to have somebody that's qualified. When I was younger in my career, I tried to wire in a box and I thought I knew what I was doing, and I shut the box off, which I didn't. I shut off a switch that this box was feeding a step-down transformer, and fortunately it was 480, so when I pushed the wires to the 100 amp breaker to the back of the box without a electrician screwdriver, it touched the back of the box and I woke up 25 feet away 8 minutes later, and I'm lucky that it knocked me off, didn't kill me. I couldn't taste food for a month, and when I woke up, my buddies, which were 500 yards away, were kicking me going, "Dude, are you dead?" And I pretty much was in so much pain I really wish I had. They took me to the hospital, and the hospital said, "Well, you're an idiot." And I was like, is that a medical, is that going to go into my medical permanent chart, follow me around for the rest of my life?
And I was going to say, I know this might sound stupid, but let's go back to basics. Every toolbox and tool thing I've got at home, I've got one of those little wire testers in there that just tells me if something's live or not. And it sounds ridiculous, but if I see a wire and I'm going to touch it with my hand, I'm going to touch it with that first.
Yeah, if you don't know what you're doing, you guys are really dancing on glass. So try to make up some pigtails and see if you can drop them off in advance and have an electrician wire it into a box. It's a lot safer. And when you're ready to start up the job, you're going to kick it into gear. And back to the original question, I'm not an electrician, but I understand that powers that's coming in, usually if I say 230, it might not be 230. Usually you get plus or minus 10% on that range where your equipment, if you're wiring it at 230 three-phase and it's plus or minus 10%, your equipment will usually safely operate in that range. But there are some exceptions where you need to have 230 volt single phase. It needs to be 230 volt. It needs to be at least 230 volt for your equipment to operate correctly. And if you have questions about your specific equipment and what the power ranges are, you can read your manual, and you certainly can reach out and ask somebody at the 800 number if you're concerned that you need to have a specific voltage for a specific piece of equipment. I encourage you to ask the question.
Yep. And I would say one big tip, I've been with National 4-ish years, something like that. And the number of calls that I've gotten of, hey, my crew didn't check the generator before I plugged my machine in, and somebody had set the generator to 460, and the machine was supposed to be 230, and they blew the capacitors right off the board. You know, it's one of those simple things that just making sure that you check it every time, or having separate generators. I know that that's an expense there, but then, you know, how expensive is a box on a machine? If you're talking 10 grand to repair it, you know,
I've actually done that too. I was standing on the back of a F350 flatbed with a 45 kVA generator. It was pouring rain, and there was a guy inside, and somebody had shipped in the machine. They unpacked it, a big, huge grinder before I got there. And these grinders actually could be ordered 230 three-phase or 480 three-phase. And I hollered in the building. Hollered. That's your word for the day. Hollered.
Hello.
Somebody might figure out that I might have grown up in the South just now. I'm fixing to tell you a story, I reckon. I hollered in, and I'm pretty sure that young man said 483 phase, so I put the generator switch on 483 phase, and he said, give it gas, and it's pouring rain, so I'm hurrying through this, and it's loud because it's pouring rain. I'm getting soaking wet, and I fire up the generator, and I flip the breaker on, and I hear boom which did exactly what Tom's telling you. It blew every capacitor right off the board. It scared the customers and the distributor sales guy that was there to help me with the demo nearly half to death. They're like, dude, what did you do? And I'm like, no, it's all your fault. He's like, I said, what did you say? He said 233 phase. Did you not hear me? I said, I heard 480. And the 4 guys that were, I think, going to change their pants from the explosion said,
Yeah.
no, he said 233 phase. I should have got off the truck, should have gone in, should have verified. So we ended up having to buy a new box, which was really expensive. So take your time and verify what you're doing. And I didn't, but everybody learns at a different speed. I'm obviously a slow learner, which I've actually been married to the same woman for 27 years in a row, consecutively without a break, and we're still married. So I'm pretty sure that my wife's the slow learner in our relationship because she's still married to me.
I think it shows your wife's
So
your wife's capacity for infinite patience.
maybe opposites don't attract.
Well, so something that I come up against is, so I sell internationally as well as here in Colorado. So I actually have 230 50 hertz customers and 230 60 hertz customers. So when we're talking about things internationally, yes, it's still 230 volt, but the actual frequency of the electricity is different. And that may not sound like a big deal, but it really actually is. So I don't know how many people know this, but the little clocks that are on all of our devices, the way that they actually keep time is by measuring the fluctuations of the frequency of the electricity. And so if those are off, then they're either going to be too fast or too slow. So if your clock in your house is always fast for some reason, then it probably means your hertz are a little bit high, or if it always seems to fall behind, it means your hertz are a little bit low. So that's just an example, but electrical motors on machines are the same way. So if the hertz aren't there and you're trying to run a 60 hertz machine on a 50 hertz power grid, the motor's going to turn too slowly and you're not going to get the production that you need. That also does other things. It messes with your amp draw. It messes with volts and wattage. So you could actually end up popping breakers and doing other things too, simply because the machine's not getting the power it needs. So the nice thing about our team at National and a lot of the machines that we build, a lot of them are just smart. They're able to deal with the 50, 60 hertz on their own. And if they're not, then you've got a sales team of people like me who are actually know what we're doing. Not to hawk a product, but our riders are smart. They know they can take 110 volt, they can take 230 volt charge without having to do anything.
That's a great point. If you guys are, we're up to 5,000. Tom,
I think it's 43,400.
Tom, my back hurts. Am I maybe on the wrong phase? You said hurts, so I was
hurts. But so our riders actually come ready to go for that. So anywhere in the world, as long as we get you the right plug, you're good to go.
If you guys weren't aware, your charger on the bottom left of your battery-powered machine, it has an IEC cord with 110 volt short pigtail. If you want to charge your machine on 230 volt single phase, you could actually go online and buy a 230 volt single phase pigtail with IEC, plug it into 230 single phase, and your National ride-on machine will actually charge much faster, much more efficient than on 110 volts. So if you guys have questions about that, but it can be done, it won't hurt the charger, won't hurt your batteries, call us, we'll tell you which model you have and make sure that it's compatible to do that. Some of the very old machines, probably that's not a thing, but on a lot of the newer machines, if you give us a serial number, we can pull up the build and we can verify that, yes, you can unplug that. And I actually have a bunch of guys that have gone and had an electrician make them a pigtail where they don't have to unplug anything in the back of the charger. They can just choose to either plug into 230 single phase or 110 volt and charge their machine. So any chance they get to charge on 230 volt single phase, they're going to charge their machine on that because it's going to charge a lot quicker.
So like twice as fast, or?
I'd say about 35% faster. So if you had a machine that was, dead at the end of the day and you were all going home, it would be fantastic if you could have the opportunity to charge it on 230 volt single phase. It would definitely charge a lot faster.
Yep. And time's money. So,
While we're talking about charging, Tom, if I have a 5700 National battery powered all day scraper, and I'm charging it with the provided 7-foot cord, I don't know if I've got one in my background, but I can grab one. Let me grab one.
It's about this length.
I'll grab one and show him. Oh, Nick Stefanski's going to give us one.
Nick's got it.
Can I use a 50-foot 12-gauge cord to charge my machine?
Well, the answer technically is yes. If you want your machine to be charged next month.
Slowly.
So National sends out a 7-foot cord, not because we're cheap.
True.
We provide you a really nice, high-quality cord.
Cheap.
But there's a drop in, I think it's your amperage, right?
Some people understand that you lose amps. Some people understand you actually lose volts. It doesn't matter. If you don't use the 7-foot cord that National provided with you, your charge time
is going to skyrocket.
Exponentially decreases. So if I use a 7-foot cord, I should expect to come back in the morning and
it'll be charged. Well,
and what happens if I use a 50-foot or 100-foot 12-gauge cord?
You'll be at like 5% the next day. I mean, it really is something that you will have noticeable difference. I had a customer down in Texas, and he'd had one of our machines for a really long time and then bought a new one and was so excited about it. And like 3 months later, he called me and was so mad because the new one took so long to charge. And it just seemed like he could never get it fully charged. And I was talking to him, and I'm like, hey, man, what cord are you using? I'm like, are you using the cord that we gave you? And he goes, no, I lost that. I'm using a 50-foot cord. And I said, there's your problem. And so I told him, I'm like, 7-foot cord, you can make one yourself. You can order one from us. Never heard from him again. The problem was solved, and it really came back to a 7-foot cord. So it's an important one. That was a good thought, Dave.
Thanks, Tom. We have so many people that are online. Do we have any live questions? Do we have other questions? Can you feed us some more questions?
We have lots of questions. I have lots of questions. Some not about surface prep.
I have lots of answers, but that doesn't mean they're the correct answers, by the way.
42.
About the battery riders into talking about battery life and best practices for getting the most life out of your batteries.
Oh,
Also hit on like AGM versus
sure.
lead acid.
Tom,
So-
can you repeat the question?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm really qualified to answer this question. So if you'll repeat the question, I'll jump onto the answer for this because I know the answer to this. I'm excited about this.
So actually, that's good because you literally give the Energizer Bunny a run for its money. So the question is best practices for extending battery life, for charging, the differences in the types of batteries that are out there that you might find on different machines, lead acid, wet batteries versus AGMs. So, Dave?
So what you guys will find, we don't spend time talking bad about the competition at National. We don't really need to. Everybody's typically trying to copy us because we make the best products on the market, and we have since 1968. But there are competitors out there that put just standard acid batteries in their riders, and they will tell you, look how much less my rider costs than that quoted National machine. But they're not actually comparing you on a quote apples to apples, because the only kind of batteries you can get in a National battery powered machine is AGM glass mat batteries. And the advantage to that, you guys, is with a glass mat battery, you run the same speed off a full charge 90% of the day. So if your machine runs 120 feet per minute, it's going to run 120 feet per minute for 90% of that charge. And at the end of the day, as an operator, it drops off considerably. And as an operator, you know it's time to plug it in and charge it. With some of those other machines on the market, with those regular standard batteries like car batteries, what happens is it slows down all day long. So you start losing your production, after the first 30 minutes, you start slowing down. And time's money, right? So don't be fooled by somebody with a cheaper product. If it's cheaper, I promise you're getting what you pay for in life. Never is something way cheaper just because it's way cheaper. You're getting a a less quality product, and we see that over and over again. Glass mat batteries are spill proof and they don't have any liquid in them. You could actually run them sideways or upside down. That's why they're called military technology batteries. They run them in tanks upside down, depending on the design, and doesn't affect the operation of the batteries. And there are some things that can hurt your AGM glass mat batteries. One of those is if your batteries are dead at the end of the day, if your batteries are dead and you're in a cold environment, and I'm not talking about you guys in Hawaii where it gets to 70 degrees and you break out your snowsuits and go, it's freezing. That's not really cold.
It's more than Minnesota cold.
Yeah, I'm talking about Minnesota, Canada, oh, don't you know, where it's really cold,
for sure.
where it gets really cold, like 20 below zero. If your batteries are dead and you leave that machine outside in those weather conditions, it can damage your AGM batteries. Now, if it's outside and you're charging it, even with a 50-foot cord, why those batteries are charging, it creates heat, and that will keep it from damaging the batteries.
So what you're talking there is trickle charging, right?
Any kind of charging. It could be trickle charged, or it could be charging full steam because it was dead at the end of the day. But you don't want to take a rider, park it outside when it's below freezing, and not have it charged or charging, because it can damage the batteries.
Well, and I think a best practice would be, and it sounds awful because everybody, when they're done at the end of the day, especially in this labor-intensive job that you guys do, plugging in your machine, I think, is just the best way to do it. Don't ever let it sit uncharged or not plugged in.
So, Tom, could I used to have a trailer, 50-foot, cord, and I would park when I was running around the country doing demos for you guys. I would take a 50-foot cord and plug it into my 5700 and then plug it into my shop because I'd park my rig in the backyard. Can I just leave it plugged in all the time?
You can.
Can.
So our chargers are smart, and they know when the battery pack is going to be calling for juice for a charge. So if you're not going to be using the machine for a long period of time, but you want to make sure that it's ready to go the next time you need it, what we were talking about, that trickle charging, it's okay at that point to use a 50-foot cord, because you only need a little bit of power to maintain that full level of juice in the machine. Now, obviously, if you're trying to do it the next day, don't do a 50-foot cord, 7-foot cord. But yeah.
I think part of the question was battery life. That kind of depends on how much you use the machine. I imagine if you use your machine 5 days a week and use a complete charge, somewhere in the range of 4 years, you probably have to replace your batteries. But I tell you what, guys, if you're using your machine 5 days a week from full to dead and then charging it from full, you've got it going on. You're making money hand over fist. Most contractors don't work their machines that much. They're not that busy. Nobody's usually running their machine 5 days a week from full to charge to an empty charge where the LVI is going off and it's telling you you've got 5 minutes and the battery's it's gonna turn the machine off. So I'd say most of the large rental companies and the guys that are using their machine at an average rate, they're probably way closer to 8 years and some of these guys are 10 years before they're replacing their batteries. But if you plan on using your machine every single day, I would say in about 4 years, you should be budgeting X amount of every job, which that's a lot of jobs. You should be taking a small portion, putting it into a battery fund. It's kind of like my daughter she has a checking account, a savings account. Then she has I want to buy a motorcycle savings account. She has I'm going to go on vacation to Vegas savings account. And then she has another savings account, which is, I think she calls it I'm going to go crazy. But she's part of my family, so she's probably already crazy. Runs in the family, she just doesn't know it. But maybe she wants some money to spend when it clicks that she's crazy like the rest of us. And you should be doing that with your machine. If you've made the investment of a battery machine, you should be taking a small portion of every job and putting it into a battery fund, because it's inevitable. It's like brakes or tires on a car. At some point, you're going to have to replace your batteries, so make sure you're prepared for it. I'm always shocked where guys are like, well, I have to spend all this money to replace my batteries. Well, you can get a propane machine, and you can pay for, if you can run it inside, good luck with that.
Oil, air filters,
yeah,
all of the consumables of having an engine.
And the cost of propane is great, because it's like, you're just paying for 2-3 bottles. Well, I don't know today with our elected officials and our
Energy
our
crisis bills and
super expensive gas and propane. We saw a meme today where it said, "We've hit
I am legend.
I am
levels.
legend gas prices" with Will Smith in the background on the side. It's pretty scary. But literally, it would cost you about twice as much in the same amount of time for the same run hours to run on propane. And we did that math years ago, so I bet you it's way higher than that. So replacing your batteries doesn't cost you as much as a contractor.
I got a question though. So I've got a pop-up camper and I've got some batteries on there and I've got a measuring device that tells me the specific gravity of the acid that's in my batteries, and
Sure.
I've got this maintenance and stuff that I have to do to them. AGM batteries, do we have any of that maintenance?
So I have guys that say I'm concerned that my machine's not running as long as when I bought it new and it's 5 or 6 years old. I recommend taking it to, or have, if it's more convenient, you can actually have the forklift service guys, and there's tons of, I don't want to put too many names out there because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but like Crown Lift, I didn't say that. You know, there's all these forklift repair companies and service companies. They
If
can
you
either
Google
come out to you.
forklift battery
Yeah.
repair.
Or you can take it to their shop and they'll load test your batteries and they'll tell you if there's any bad batteries or if all of them are the same. And they'll tell you what your battery life is, what's left.
But I
I
think
actually have a pacemaker and defibrillator. They told me on a checkup a couple weeks ago that I have 2.3 years left and then they're going to have to replace it. So even Dave needs batteries replacements at some point.
well, and I think
So-
like daily maintenance on our batteries, there's nothing you have to do. They're
No,
sealed.
they're sealed. You just plug it in.
But making sure there's no debris so you don't short circuit the battery pack.
Plug it in,
Making sure that your connections are tight. I think those are pretty self-explanatory, pretty easy things to do. But AGM batteries are expensive, but they're well worth it.
Correct. All right, next. Generators.
Power question, generators. How do you know what size generator you need?
Generators.
Generators.
I've got
What's-
the power.
What size generator do I need for this machine? And don't forget, which guys always do, and my vacuum. Don't just plug in, well, my grinder or my shop blaster or my walk-behind scraper. Walk-behind scrapers don't need vacuums, but
They also don't
so
need-
Tom, how do I know? Is there something provided by National that might tell us?
that's a good question. In the Panther Den for all national employees, there is a spreadsheet. So we actually have that readily available. All of us that work in the office or any of our sales reps out in the field, we've all got access to a sales sheet that our engineers have put together, which tells us the correct size generator to pair with what machine. And a really special thing about this is that it tells you to, and it warns you to not look at peak watts, peak output
Correct.
on the generator. So it's something a lot of people get confused on. Peak output is during startup or under max load, and the generator really can't run at that for a very long time. So it'll give you a continuous output number, and that's the number that we're talking about. So that's something that's really important to actually bring in, because I had a guy in Texas, and he was running a shop blaster off of, it was like a 17 kilowatt peak generator, which barely met the requirements for what he was running. And what ended up happening is that the generator couldn't keep up with the power demands of the machine. And so this was my learning experience with this, is it actually started throwing out dirty power, the voltage spikes and everything else. And it was the correct power, but it blew all the capacitors off the board. So making sure that you pair that generator with the machine and have the correct size generator is really important.
Ooh, very good answer, Tom. Why so serious? All right, I'm going to tell a joke. So, it's not even a service prep joke. I could tell a service prep joke, but I'm not going to because I always get in trouble. So this guy, right, he goes to his therapist. He's laying on the couch. And the therapist says, "Tell me what's going on, young man." And he's laying on the couch. He says, "Doc, I'm a wigwam, I'm a teepee, I'm a wigwam, I'm a teepee, I'm a wigwam, I'm a teepee." Therapist looks at him and says, "Son, you need to calm down. You are too tense." 2 tenths. All right. You got
I
any
like
jokes?
that. I'm
I
not
have
good at
tons more jokes, but I'm not allowed to tell any of them. I can tell about 0.3% of all the jokes that I know. Concrete hardness.
Concrete hardness.
Concrete is hard. Okay, next question.
If you have soft concrete, run the other way.
4,000 psi in Florida different than 4,000 psi in Colorado.
So the question
I'm
is...
going to repeat the question because I think you have a better answer for this than I do.
Maybe.
So the question was, concrete hardness, 4,000 psi concrete in Florida is different than 4,000 psi concrete, say, Colorado.
That's actually not true. 4,000 psi concrete is 4,000 psi concrete wherever you're at in the country. But good luck finding 4,000 psi concrete in the state of Florida because the concrete's made with sand and shell. So it's like 100 psi concrete. So you'll find our contractors, you guys that are out here watching, maybe 2,500 of you that are out here watching this right now, you know that a lot of you guys are actually having to use harder densifier on the concrete before you can even do any surface prep. And then there's guys in Tennessee that have 7,000 psi concrete with granite mixed in with their concrete. There's a struggle. You really need to understand the psi of your concrete when you're bidding a job on the front side, because depending on the diamonds and the consumables you're using, you need to match those to the psi of the concrete. This building has, I think, 6,800 psi concrete. It's the hardest concrete I've ever seen. We've done Mohs hardness testers on it, and I also have this tool that's spring loaded that you load it and you press a button and it tells you how hard the concrete is. Both of them have come within 6,500 to 7,000 psi. It's the hardest concrete on the planet. So you have to have super soft diamonds to do a demo in here because it won't even scratch it with medium bond diamonds. And if I shot blast it, I can go really slow and not do a whole lot of profile on a CSP. So you definitely want to know, I see a lot of contractors that they'll test one spot, but that doesn't mean your concrete is consistent in a 50,000 square foot building. I'm actually an ACI certified concrete place and finisher, and I learned a lot about concrete. For a short time, I left this industry and I sold laser screeds, and I watched guys, and I actually placed and finished a ton of concrete. You know, they start off in the morning and it's nice and cool and they're placing their concrete, and as they move along, the sun comes up, the wind picks up. Yeah, there's somebody walking on a roof.
I was going to say, I'm just waiting for somebody to fall through and join us.
Of course, when we turn on the live
Is that
video,
you, God? I'm here.
somebody starts walking on the roof, which is fantastic. So what I was saying was, and they start finishing it too. Finishing can have an effect on that. You know, when they start finishing over here, they're troweling along, and by the time they get to the end of the slab, the guy in the trowel's like, man, it is beer 30 and my kid has a baseball game, and he just rushes through it and then pulls the machine off. All those things can really affect. And my favorite is the guy doing the slump test on the concrete. He goes to the porta-john for 20 minutes, and the concrete truck drivers are pouring water into the truck and dumping it out so they can get out of there because the guy doing the slump test is nowhere around. So I encourage you to, if you're gonna try to figure out what your concrete hardness is on a job, test it in a whole bunch of different places before you decide that it's 3,000 psi or 4,000 psi or 2,500 psi.
And if you're on a job site, that just brings up a good question, because you've talked about Mohs hardness testing, and would you be doing that, or would you be doing like your knife test that you've talked about before?
Yeah,
Or, you know, what's the best way? I don't know if we have a knife
So
around here.
I've been stuck on jobs where guys are like, well, Dave, can you tell us how hard our concrete is? Well, I don't have a Mohs hardness tester in my pocket, and I don't have that big, expensive spring-loaded tool. So I've been around the block, and I cheat. I grab a flathead screwdriver or my pocket knife, and probably not my Ken Onion Kershaw from the Smoky Mountain Knife Works that I paid $80 for. But I typically on the job site have a gas station $8 pocket knife. Those are great. I can scrape the concrete, and when I go back and forth, if it just, like in this building, when you do that on this slab, the metal actually transfers onto the concrete.
It may or may not do anything.
Doesn't do anything. It's a pretty good indicator that this is really hard concrete. if I'm digging in back and forth trying to dig a trench and I kind of get into it and make a little bit of dust, but I'm working at it, it's probably a medium hardness concrete. If I'm down in Louisiana, Florida, and I break out that pocket knife, man, I can dig a hole to China in no time. You know, I'm just going back and forth and it's digging a trench, making tons of powder. I know it's soft concrete. Is that scientific? Nope. But if I'm in a bind and they're like, Dave, can you help us? I'm going to grab that screwdriver, that pocket knife, and I'm going to be able to tell you pretty quickly. And especially if I do that 2-3 places and it's consistent, either I'm doing nothing to the concrete or I'm just making a little bit of a dent or I'm just digging holes in the concrete. I could tell you whether it's soft, medium, or hard.
Yeah.
I wouldn't bid a 100,000 square foot job on that detail.
And
but
don't bet your warranty either for whatever you're going to be doing after on that. I mean, that's definitely where you want a Mohs hardness tester and to have some actual scientific and measurement numbers behind it. But if you're just trying to figure out what bond tooling to match with the job that you're at, that's a really great, quick, easy way to do it.
has anybody figured out my dancing on glass reference? If you did, chat in the answer. I'm not giving you any hints. Next question. Oh, when would you use a metal bond diamond versus a PCD? That's a really good question. And one of the things that I really like about Nationals grinders is the amount of tooling that you actually can put on it that makes it super versatile, which helps you get a return on your investment. Tom, do you want to answer this question?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start. I was going to say I'll start, but then chime in. So if you've got beautiful virgin concrete that's never been touched before, you don't need a PCD. You just need, your diamonds to get the profile and the CSP that you're looking for. If you've got some sort of coating or maybe some thin set, mortar on the ground, or if you've got some adhesive, then that might be where we start talking about PCDs and using either a less aggressive PCD like our 2-up half rounds or our micro PCDs because they're really aggressive and the diamonds are exposed and it's like chunks of diamond in there and they just are going to shred through that material. So, excuse me. Typically, if you've just got like a sealer on the concrete or plain concrete.
Oh, not that kind of seal, sorry.
Not that seal. Then, just like a metal bond diamond's going to be great. But if you've got something that you have to take off of there that's really well bonded, PCD is really good, especially mastics, like I said. Some adhesives,
old failing patches. I've got a video of that somewhere on my phone.
And I guess my thing too is PCDs are more expensive than metal bond diamonds per square foot. So if you can do the job with a metal bond diamond and it's doing okay, then that's probably a cost-effective way to do it. But if you've got either time against you or something's really well bonded to the concrete, then you want to go with that more aggressive option.
If you guys want to, because we have so much tooling that we offer for the Nationals Helix for the 8274-4, if you guys want to set up an individual FaceTime training, we can kind of show you some of the different diamonds that are available. We can talk a little bit in depth about the different hardnesses, the soft bond, medium bond, hard bond, how to pair those up with the concrete you're trying to prepare. We can talk about the micro PCDs, the 1-inch carbides, the half bars, the full bars, the metal profiling. There's so many different things that you can do. That's part of the reason why I get super excited about Nationals equipment, because if I was a contractor, I love shop blasting. If you guys don't know, I've been around for a long time. I started this career at a company called Nelco. That's 100 years ago. And I fell in love with shop blasting. You can clean and profile the concrete in one step. But as grinders came along into this industry, I was like, who needs a grinder? Well, you can grind to prep a concrete surface, and I don't get super excited about that until I came to work at National and they started developing tooling like PCDs and the 5-inch adapter pad, so I could put sandpaper on it, so I could do a buff and recoat or refinish a wood floor. I could take up thick coatings with micro PCDs. It goes on and on and on. So I got super excited about that, and I love sharing that knowledge. And I could see why grinding, especially with national specific grinders, gets super excited about the ability to spend, not a whole lot of money, but get a lot of return on that investment. I hope I answered y'all's question. If you want, I could spend hours talking about tooling. So if you guys want to do a one-on-one, I encourage you call National, and they'll set us up with one of the two of us right away.
Well, and I think like a really good real life example that you and I went on was when we went up to those storage units up in, I think it was like Loveland, north of here, and they had some epoxy coating that a guy put down on the floor that he did not prep correctly, and they needed to get that coating off. And so we brought a scarifier, we brought a shot blaster, we brought a grinder, and then you ended up going back with a scraper, and I don't think I was there for that. But we tried all of these different machines, all of these different techniques to remove that coating, and it ended up being the best method was using one of our ride-on scrapers, because we tried the metal bond diamonds. They didn't do anything. They just kind of skidded over it.
We'd have made a career out of removing that coating.
And, if I got paid by the hour, it would have been great.
Yeah, love it.
But then we tried the PCDs, and it shredded into the concrete. And it was going to be way too aggressive of a profile for what was going to be going down next, because it was a thinner coat. So those weren't good. The scarifier, I think, worked, but it wasn't doing the job like it really should have done. And then you went back with the scraper, and it just peeled off the floor, probably a 1-inch blade. So I think that's just a really good example of, not that any one of those methods necessarily failed to start with, but having those different tools in your tool belt, having different tooling available for your grinder, really allows you to fine-tune your machine for what you're trying to do.
Perfect. All right, we got some more questions.
I know this is your favorite question in the world.
The question is there a rule of thumb or a guide on how long your diamonds are going to last?
I've got this. The answer is coming
with
to
the diamond.
me now.
You guys, really the answer is job site conditions dictate. But there are some rule of thumbs where, with a GP500 or a GP700, the tooling's much larger, and we can kind of figure with the head pressure with an average job, you should expect about 8 to 10,000 square feet out of a set of diamonds. If you're not matching your diamonds with the hardness of the concrete really effectively, that could go way down, or it could go way up, but then your production goes down. With the smaller machines like the Helix or the 8274-4, they have less head pressure, but the diamond tooling's smaller too, so the cost of the tooling is a lot less than some of the larger grinders. But you wouldn't expect your full bar diamonds to last that long. I would guess 2,500 square feet would be a great rule of thumb, but that doesn't mean you're going to get 2,500 square feet. You might get 5,000 square feet. But I've actually made the mistake of throwing some half bar diamonds on some brute finish concrete, and I got about 800 square feet, and they just disappeared.
Yeah, well,
I was like, whoops, I made that mistake.
We had the customer that was doing, it was beautiful concrete inside, and they were getting the expected wear on their diamonds, and then they went outside to grind a patio that they hadn't originally talked to us about, and their diamonds disappeared. And I drove down there because I'm like, well, that's weird. I don't know what's going on. And I went down there, and the entire patio felt like sandpaper. They had broadcast sand into the concrete for a non-slip finish at the end, and that silica that they put out there just shredded the diamonds and made them disappear. So, same job site, same technical job, same machine, same diamonds, but what they were grinding really determined that difference.
So nobody stumped us, and I was going to give away like a free date with you.
Oh, dear God. I'm so sorry if that's what the prize is for today.
That's what I was hoping for.
I think we should just give you money.
Wasn't approved, but I was going to try to give Tom away for a night.
Did you get my wife to say okay to that?
Your wife was the first. I think she was the one that suggested it.
Oh,
But
fair
then,
enough.
of course, I have to babysit, so we both win. It's a win-win for both of us.
True.
If anybody wants to babysit my kids, I have a 22-year-old and a 26-year-old. I'll send them over right away.
And if you want to just, hang out at his house, you can give them your credit card, and they'll go shopping and spend some money and
Order
have some
pizza.
fun.
We have a few minutes left. These are great questions. I'm glad you guys asked. If you still have questions and we wrap this up in a few minutes, reach out to National. National's actually chocked full of.
We got a theme song now.
I think they're playing music on the roof. I'm not joking. Well, hopefully the
Oh,
mic's
that's
not picking
sad.
it up. Because if it does, we just covered this a minute ago. We're going to do the sprinkler, right? What else are we going to do? The pantyhose dance? They just taught me a bunch of dances before this. I'm not joking.
Well,
Oh, the
we call it the
lawnmower?
lawnmower, but I'm going to call it the generator.
My favorite one was, I can't say who, but they were doing the car wash.
Car wash.
And they did it way better than me. And I almost just died. It was fantastic. So tune in for more dance moves on our next episode.
Or the outtakes reel.
I think this is the first annual National Flooring Equipment Workshop. Monthly. First annual monthly. So we're going to do it every month. That makes it annually, right? No?
I could go dark
Annually's
right there.
year?
I'm just going to...
Annually's yearly? Dang it. No wonder I'm not in marketing. Dave, go back out to the warehouse.
We're going to be here every
Put
month.
your boots on and stop using big words. All right, fine. So if you guys want to seriously or not seriously, reach out and we can cover any topics on a one-on-one basis at any time. We offer tons of training here. It's literally just blaring music from
I'm just waiting for the bass to drop and like some dancing crews to come through and some confetti cannons.
All right, next question.
What do we got?
Last question.
Last
Oh
question.
boy. So far anyway.
In a general sense, how much tooling should you, if you have a couple weeks worth of jobs lined up with your scraper, how much tooling should you have on you? What,
Tony, you want to answer this one? It's your turn.
Sure. Well, I don't know. It's not really terms, but so the question
Well-
was, how much tooling should you have in your toolkit? If you've got a couple weeks of jobs lined up, how much do you need? And
All of it.
I was going to say, as a sales guy, obviously
All
the
of it.
answer is multiple sets of all of it.
All of it.
Because you never know what's going to happen. And to be fair, there is being over-prepared, and then there's being not prepared enough. And you're going to spend more money if you're not prepared because now you've got to pay for overnight freight and all that. And obviously, if you build that into the cost of the job, then that's fine. But most guys don't do that. I think a fair assessment is, obviously we talked about how many square feet you're going to get out of your tooling. And as you work with our machines and our tools, you're going to kind of learn the average square foot for you and your area, what's going to last. And I would definitely just say you need to have a couple of sets because you never know what's going to happen. You never know if you're going to hit a deadhead in the concrete and break off one of your segments or, you don't want to be on a job site and have the reason that you can't work be because you don't have tools. And here in Colorado, the contractors have a little bit of an advantage because we've got some tooling here for our demo purposes that we can rescue people, but we don't have offices in every state or every country. And so not everybody has that. So if you know that you need medium bond diamonds, have a few sets of medium bond diamonds because you're going to go through them eventually, but it would be worse to not have them. Always, make sure that you've got, maybe you don't need 4 types of PCDs, but you should have 1 or 2 types of PCDs, a more aggressive and a less aggressive, so that you can bid on that job that pops up last minute because Joe Schmo's garage floor failed and his Corvette club's coming over to see the beautiful car he just got, and he needs that garage floor finished in 2 days, and you're going to win the job because you've got the tooling and the ability to get it done.
So what I've historically seen is if you're a contractor and you think you need 3 sets of diamonds, you should probably order 4. And I'm not in the sales part of National. I'm global director of training which, by the way, if you Wikipedia that is short for the guy that gets dirty every day. It's how important I am. I was sweeping the floors in here this morning. I swear, it's a true story. But what happens is
I feel like the music just keeps getting louder.
louder. So if you really needed 4 sets and you ordered 3 sets, your job's on the weekend, and on Sunday afternoon, you have 300 square feet left to do, and you're out of diamonds. Now you have to wait for Monday morning, and you have to wait for National to open up, place an order. Now you're in a panic, so now you're in overnight diamonds, and they're still not going to show up till Tuesday. So let me ask you, and now you've got more mobilizations. It's really better just to have a little more tooling than not having enough and that finishing up and not be able to finish a job.
So yeah, and you know, from the sales side, I would rather you have one extra set and be slightly annoyed because I told you to have that set than to be panicked and calling me and needing me to overnight things to you, because I think it's easier as a sales guy to have a good relationship with you when it's that way. I don't know, it's my 2 cents, but
So
I'm also known for overpacking and over preparing.
I overstrap equipment down. The thought of equipment coming through or out the back door is really a scary thing. So, all right. So we have 4 minutes left, or we're going to wrap it up unless somebody has a question. Wrap it up. Wrap it up. I'll take it.
Wrap it up.
You know, I have a song for everything in my head. It's a disorder of mine. So typically when there's anything going on, there's some relatable song playing in my head. That's a true story.
Is
Think
there
I
like
should seek
is there like a
medication
dance
or-
move called the Saran Wrap or
The
something?
Saran wrap? I don't know. We'll have to try
Wicka,
that.
wicka, wicka, wicka.
Oh, and how did we miss the shopping cart? They
that's
taught
right.
me this one this morning. It's fantastic. I have all these new dance moves.
Well, and now
And now they've got music
off.
playing, so
no,
this
they
is
turned it off.
timing. It's perfect timing.
Well, I heard volume controls.
Subscribe and follow our socials.
Subscribe.
There we go. Also deaf. We're really excited about doing this stuff. But the next time we have a live event, we would love for YouTube to actually notify you. So if you could hit the subscribe button, follow us, not just for Dave and I sitting here talking at you, but our marketing team has some great videos and content that they put out all the time, unbeknownst to us. So definitely like us, follow us, subscribe. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. I don't think we're on Twitter.
Subscribe.
We're not cool enough to TikTok.
I don't Tweeter or Twitter. I have a Facebook, but I don't.
I might
Tweeter or
look
Twatter
young,
or-
but I'm like an old man.
You look young. You
so-
think you look young?
That's right. Everyone keeps reminding me all of the
His
white hair
beard
in my
is
beard.
almost Santa Claus like. And I can't grow a beard, so I'm just jealous. I don't care what color it
So
is.
I was
can't grow a
I
beard.
was on. No, this has nothing to do with anything. So you all can tune out now. But last night I was on a video call with our Japanese distributor.
Hi.
And the president of the company, Seiji-san, popped in and just, oh, because I grew my beard back. And the
Yes.
last time he had seen me,
No
I
beard.
had shaved my beard so that my mask fit better. And he just couldn't believe that I had grown a beard back that fast. And I didn't have the heart to tell him that I've trimmed it like 5 times since then.
I'm gonna grow a beard when I grow up. I'm pretty sure. I'm hoping, because currently I can grow a beard here, and I can grow a beard right there, and grow a little bit of a beard right there. But that's it. So, all right.
So bringing it back, like us, follow us, subscribe. Thank you guys. Thank you everybody out there for joining us.
For tuning in. Hope
See you
guys had
next month if they let us back on.
Hopefully you had as much fun as we did. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Dave.
And